and welcome to the Divorce Lab. We're a group of independent professionals working to help educate the public on various topics related to divorce. I am Carrie Goldring, a certified divorce lending professional who specializes in mortgage planning.
And I'm Mark Avezai. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I work primarily in Troy, Michigan.
Hi, I'm Jim Chryssikos. I'm a family law attorney and mediator located in Troy, Michigan. So let's get started with today's show.
Lisa, one of the things that I see frequently is, and I'm sure you do as well, is you have two spouses. One's usually a financial spouse and one usually isn't. And frequently that non-financial spouse has difficulty making decisions because they have difficulty knowing what they should be asking for, shouldn't be asking for, what the future is going to look like. How do you help guide them to have a better understanding of what life is going to look like? Do you bring in financial support? Do you bring in Carrie? And if you do, when do you do those things?
So usually, actually, I try to suss that out in the telephone screening call that I do at the very beginning. You know what, and that's some of the questions that I'm asking. You know, how they communicate about money, who's been in charge, what knowledge do they have, and then I'm going to talk with them about what they need. And so if there is one spouse who really just didn't handle anything and doesn't know anything, I'm going to ask them, do you think, I have financial advisors that I can recommend to you. I have a mortgage consultant, a divorce mortgage specialist that I can recommend to you. Do you think that would be helpful? And so I kind of, again, because I'm not acting as an attorney, I don't tell them what they must do or, who they must use or when they must use them, but I'm going to offer it up. And so sometimes I'll do that in the pre-screening. Sometimes we'll just then discuss it as the case is going on. And once we start getting into those financial issues, if those things become apparent and they hadn't gone to anybody yet, then I'm going to, again, suggest, it might be a good idea to get some help here. What I often do is tell them both to talk to the person. So like if I recommended you, Mark, I might just have, the person who doesn't have as much knowledge go to you. But I always offer it like, hey, if you both want to go to that person, so that one person doesn't feel like there's a part of the mediation process where someone's working against them, where, we really want this whole thing to be as collaborative as possible. What happens a lot, though, is that the person who, one person's often like really good with the finances and they're doing their own Excel budgets and they got it all set up and they just don't need to go meet with that financial person. And most of the time, they're happy to let the other person have a financial person help them because it just makes everything go a lot smoother if they understand it. So really the answer is I do it as it comes up and just communicate with them and just say, hey, I've got these people. I'd like, I think it could help, but then I got to leave it in their hands. You know what I mean? Like you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. So the ones who don't get help, frankly, just makes the mediation usually take a lot longer. And then sometimes what they'll do is they'll end up just getting an attorney who can help them with it sometimes, or sometimes the attorney will say, you know what, we need to bring some financial people in. So it really just depends on the situation. I don't have like one stock way of doing it.
And Lisa, for people listening to this, I think maybe this is a good alternative to litigation or more cumbersome process. How long or how many sessions would you say in most cases on average we require?
Yeah, so I've been doing it 17 years, so I have a pretty good feel for the average. I usually tell people who don't have children, minor children, that it's probably going to be 4 or 5 sessions. If spousal support is an issue, sometimes that's a hot button issue that takes a little more time to work through. It could be a little more than that. If they do have children, I usually say maybe 5 or 6 sessions is my average. So it really just depends. Usually it's like for people who without minor children, it's a couple months, 2 to 3 months. People with children is probably 3 to 4 months. I think those are fair averages. Obviously, it can be less than that if they work really well together and there's not a lot of emotion, there's not a lot of complexities. It can take a little longer than that if there is a lot of emotion or a lot of complexities and so forth. But it really shouldn't take that long. Like it's a much smoother process. And of course, it all depends how often we meet, right? So if it's 6 sessions and we meet every single week, that's 6 weeks. If we meet every couple of weeks, right? So that's part of it too. But it's definitely, but you have to also remember, they have to remember what you have at the end of that time is a settlement agreement. And now you're ready to go to court and have the judge rubber stamp your agreement. The judge doesn't have to decide anything. So it's not like you're going through my process, and then you have to start this court process. You sign my agreement, it's a binding contract, you can start the parenting plan, you can start child support, you can start spousal support, dividing your property and debt, you can do all those things with this settlement agreement. And so court, it's not even that important, like you're not legally divorced, but you can start operating as a separate entity. So
And your sessions are approximately 2 hours, which is similar to collaborative divorce. We usually have 2-hour sessions, and that seems to be about the limit to what most people can handle without getting frustrated or cranky or aggravated or whatever. And again, contrast that with late stage mediation where you're already in litigation and you've got a deadline. Sometimes those mediations can go, they're usually scheduled for 4 hours, and sometimes they can go, I've had them go as long as 10 hours. And it's crazy to think that somebody can make a rational decision at 10 o'clock at night after 8 hours of mediation is lunacy.
Well, plus, don't you feel like late stage mediation, sometimes the mediator, they go in 2 separate rooms, so they're not together. I had one recent case that was in late stage mediation, and I talked to the husband and wife ahead of time, and they both talked to me about wanting the wife to keep the home. And then when they went to late stage mediation, the mediator went into the wife's room and said, "Oh, it took pulling teeth to get your husband to agree to give you the house. And he got up and he almost walked away." And we knew that wasn't even a true statement. So sometimes I think they go back and forth with the goal of, I need to make you agree, not like how Lisa does it, where you sit down and discuss things and come up with a decision together.
Yeah, to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I don't like late stage mediation, because most of the attorneys expect me to do that. They want me to separate. They want me to go and sort of arm twist to get, some client control, to get their clients, because they're tired. They don't want to go to trial. Some attorneys love trial, but a lot of them don't, because they know they can lose. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen at a trial. It's in a judge's hands. So you could win, you can lose, you have no idea. And so I just don't like that. Like, I want like I keep saying, but it's true, I want the clients to be the ones who make the decisions about their lives. It's so important.
Like honest decisions
that they feel good about. And that's the other thing. So we have 2-hour-long sessions. Hopefully they reach some agreements during the session. I go draft that part of the agreement. We get back together at the next session. I read out loud the draft that I created, so they can both approve every word of it, rediscuss things, whatever they need to make sure that part of the agreement's exactly the way they want it before we move on to the next. And so we just keep building an agreement. So by the end, they're ready to sign because they have been through that whole thing and they know that it's good.
And that's great. And it's a little unique because in a lot of mediations, you work through all the issues, you maybe put it on an audio recording or some maybe bullet point checklist of these are the things we agreed upon. And then the mediator says, all right, one of the attorneys is going to go draft the final settlement agreement. And that's where a lot of arguments can ensue. But when Lisa does it, she's drafting it as we go along. And at that last meeting, pretty much have a signed agreement.
And everyone understands what the agreement says. There's nothing ambiguous.
Yeah, and not only is it a final signed agreement, but it's one that if they have lawyers, the lawyers have already reviewed it and made their edits. It's one, if there's a financial neutral or financial professional, they've looked it over and made their input known. So mortgage professionals say, hey, you're going to need an extra couple months on the back end of this just to make sure you qualify. You've had your input. Right. So everybody who's a player with who's had input, it's already in the agreement.
Yeah, it's a good process. It works well.
I get one more thing I just wanted to say about just in general, because I'm always worried that people are going to think the only time they would want to do pre-filing mediation is if they get along great, or if they've decided everything already. Because I've had a lot of people call me and say, well, yeah, we get along really well, so we thought mediation would be right. Or we don't have much property, or we've agreed on everything. And I always feel like that's awesome. That's going to make the mediation go great, and it'll be a lot easier for me. But that's not the only cases where mediation works. And in fact, sometimes I feel mediation offers the most benefit when the parties are more at loggerheads or don't communicate well, because then that's my job, is to help change that dynamic, help them talk about things in a better way, listen to each other, don't interrupt, hold on a minute, let's make sure we're really understanding each other. So I guess I do want to just send that message to, please give it a try, even if you don't get along well, because I mean, divorce is, you're getting divorced for a reason. And it's really all the same issues are the same issues, whether you mediate them or you litigate them. And the only question is, how are you going to do that? How are you going to make those decisions?
And that's where your talent shines for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm going to come on this show all the time.
Yes. Okay. Well, Lisa, it was fabulous to have you as always.
Okay.
Let people know, how should they get a hold of you? How do they find your website?
My website is, what I'm told, it's easy to remember and hard to type or write, but it is www, of course, apeacefuldivorce.com. And you have to put the A in front of the peaceful divorce, or else you get an attorney in California, apparently. So apeacefuldivorce.com. And then my number is 248-909-0631. And I would love to talk to people.
We'll make sure to put all your bio and contact info on the page so they can find you right on this recording.
Oh, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
My pleasure. It's
Thanks,
been a
Lisa.
pleasure. And I like working with all of you. I just want to give a plug to everybody.
Thank you for listening to us today. You can find us on the divorcelab.com. You can feel free to take a look at our other episodes, and you can also leave some questions or comments for us on there as well.